Welcome to Space Nexus. Please subscribe and hit the bell icon for more breaking updates. In the heart of the South China Sea, a region already fraught with tension and competing claims, a new U.S. Philippines energy pact has reignited a fierce territorial dispute that has simmered for decades. This agreement, while focused on energy development, has become a catalyst for renewed confrontation, drawing in not just the countries directly involved, but the attention of the entire world. What was once a regional quarrel over maritime boundaries and resource rights has now transformed into a global flashpoint, with major powers watching closely and weighing their next moves. The South China Sea, long a crossroads of commerce and strategy, is now at the center of a high-stakes geopolitical contest. The agreement, which aims to jointly develop vital oil and gas resources in waters claimed by Manila, is being celebrated in the Philippines as a bold step toward energy independence and economic growth. For many Filipinos, it represents hope for a more secure future, with the promise of jobs, investment, and a stronger national position. But in Beijing, the pact is condemned as a direct challenge to China's sovereignty and maritime ambitions. Chinese officials have denounced the agreement, warning that any attempt to exploit resources in what they consider their territory will be met with firm resistance. Protests and fiery rhetoric have erupted, fueling nationalist sentiment and hardening China's stance. By embedding itself in the Philippines' energy ambitions, the United States has drawn a firmer line against China's expanding influence in the region. This move signals a deepening alliance between Washington and Manila, and raises the stakes for all involved. The pact is not just about energy, it's about power, security, and the future balance of the Indo-Pacific. As American and Philippine vessels prepare for joint exploration missions, they do so under the watchful and increasingly aggressive eye of the Chinese Coast Guard. Tensions at sea are palpable, with each side testing the other's resolve. The risk of miscalculation or accidental confrontation has never been higher, and the world is watching every move. Every maneuver, every diplomatic statement, and every deployment of ships risks either easing tensions or triggering a crisis with global consequences. Behind closed doors, diplomats scramble to find common ground, while in public, leaders issue warnings and reassurances. The stakes could not be higher, as the outcome of this standoff may shape the future of international law and regional stability. Tonight we unravel the details of this high-stakes pact, explore the motivations of each player, and examine the dangerous new chapter it has opened in the South China Sea. A chapter that could redefine alliances, redraw boundaries, and determine the fate of one of the world's most contested waters. The South China Sea is a battleground of overlapping claims, where geography, history, and geopolitics collide. Stretching over 3.5 million square kilometers, this vast expanse of water is bordered by several nations, each with its own vision of sovereignty and national interest. The region's strategic location and abundant resources have made it one of the world's most contested maritime zones. At the heart of the dispute lies China's sweeping 9-dash line, a loosely defined boundary that claims nearly 90% of the South China Sea. This line, drawn on Chinese maps since the 1940s, is based on historical assertions that are fiercely disputed by neighboring countries and widely rejected by the international community. China's claim directly clashes with the exclusive economic zones, or EEZs, of the Philippines, Vietnam, Malaysia, Brunei, and Taiwan. These EEZs are recognized under international law, specifically the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, or UNCLOS. The result is a tangled web of contested sovereignty, with each nation asserting its rights to fish, drill, and navigate in these waters. The stakes are enormous. The South China Sea is a vital artery for global trade, with trillions of dollars worth of goods passing through its shipping lanes every year. Beneath its surface lie vast reserves of oil and natural gas, resources that are crucial for the energy security and economic growth of the surrounding countries. Control over these waters means not just economic power, but also strategic leverage in the broader Asia-Pacific region. In 2016, the Permanent Court of Arbitration in The Hague delivered a landmark ruling, declaring China's expansive claims to be without legal basis. The tribunal sided with the Philippines, affirming that China had violated its sovereign rights. However, Beijing flatly rejected the verdict, dismissing it as illegitimate, and instead doubled down on its activities in the region, rapidly building and militarizing artificial islands. These artificial outposts now serve as forward bases for Chinese military and Coast Guard forces. From these strongholds, China projects power, deploying radar systems, airstrips, and missile batteries. Chinese vessels routinely patrol the area, intercepting and harassing ships from neighboring countries, escalating the risk of confrontation. China's so-called gray zone tactics, intimidation and coercion that stop short of open warfare, have steadily consolidated its control. These tactics include shadowing, blocking, and even ramming foreign vessels, creating a climate of constant tension and uncertainty for all who depend on these waters. As the situation grows more volatile, outside powers like the United States and its allies have stepped up their presence, conducting freedom of navigation operations and joint military exercises. The South China Sea has become a flashpoint for great power rivalry, setting the stage for a dramatic escalation that could reshape the balance of power in Asia and beyond. In September 2023, the U.S. and the Philippines signed a sweeping energy pact, targeting joint exploration in contested waters like the Reed Bank. The deal promises U.S. technology, investment in renewables, and a path to energy independence for Manila, backed by American power. China swiftly condemned the agreement, warning of serious consequences, and ramping up its maritime presence near disputed areas. Regional players like Vietnam and Malaysia are watching closely, seeing the pact as a possible model for resisting Chinese pressure. The agreement has forced Southeast Asian nations to reconsider their alliances and strategies. The U.S. Philippines Pact is now a catalyst for a broader regional realignment. Tensions soared as China escalated harassment of Philippine vessels, using water cannons and aggressive maneuvers to block resupply missions. The U.S. responded by reaffirming its defense commitments and increasing joint military exercises with the Philippines. Washington's message: any attack on Philippine forces in the South China Sea could trigger a U.S. response. China meanwhile accuses the U.S. of stoking conflict and using the Philippines as a pawn. Both sides are locked in a cycle of provocation and deterrence, with armed vessels operating dangerously close. Experts warn that a single miscalculation could spark a crisis. The world watches as the risk of confrontation grows. The U.S. Philippines Pact is reshaping Southeast Asia's diplomatic landscape, emboldening some ASEAN members to take a firmer stand against China. Vietnam has strengthened security ties with the U.S., while Indonesia seeks to diversify its partnerships. Instead of a unified ASEAN, new coalitions are forming with the U.S., Japan, and Australia at the core. American investment in technology and renewables offers an alternative to China's Belt and Road, shifting economic loyalties. However, pro-China states like Cambodia and Laos remain obstacles to regional unity. The pact has deepened divisions, making Southeast Asia a more explicit arena for great power rivalry. For the Philippines, tapping offshore oil and gas could mean energy independence and economic transformation. For the U.S., the pact opens new markets and counters China's dominance in regional energy. But the risks are high. Disputed waters are patrolled by Chinese forces, and any drilling could provoke confrontation. The threat of conflict could deter investment and destabilize global energy markets. Environmental concerns loom as a clash or accident could trigger ecological disaster. The economic promise is real, but so is the peril. The region's prosperity and stability now hang in the balance. Beyond geopolitics, the conflict's human toll is mounting. Filipino fishermen face harassment and dwindling catches as Chinese vessels drive them from traditional waters. Coastal communities are plunged into poverty and anxiety, caught in the crossfire of global powers. Philippine sailors and Marines endure daily threats on the front lines, their lives shaped by high-stakes brinkmanship. A military clash would devastate both service members and civilians, disrupting food supplies and economies. The fishermen and sailors are the human face of this dispute, a stark reminder of the real-world costs. The stakes are not just strategic, but deeply personal. Experts are divided on the pact's impact. Some see it as a game-changer, giving the Philippines leverage and deterring China. Others warn it raises the risk of accidental conflict, with U.S. and Chinese forces operating in close quarters. Economic analysts question whether the security environment can support long-term investment. Some argue the Pact's greatest value is diplomatic, signaling U.S. commitment to the region. But it may also deepen divisions within ASEAN, sidelining collective diplomacy. The central question: can new alliances create stability, or will they entrench rivalry and risk? The South China Sea is now the world's most volatile geopolitical fault line, a region where the interests of global superpowers and regional players collide with increasing frequency. This vast expanse of water, rich in resources and vital to international trade, has become a stage for high-stakes maneuvering, military posturing, and diplomatic brinkmanship. The recent U.S. Philippines Defense Pact has set the stage for a potential showdown, pitting American resolve against Chinese ambition. Both nations are ramping up their presence, conducting joint exercises and sending clear signals that neither side is willing to back down. The Philippines, once hesitant, now finds itself at the center of a strategic contest, seeking security guarantees while balancing economic ties with China. In the coming months, all eyes will be on whether joint energy exploration projects can move forward, or if they will be stymied by aggressive Chinese patrols and legal threats. The world is watching to see how China will respond to these new partnerships and whether it will escalate its tactics or seek compromise. The best-case scenario would see renewed negotiations, creative diplomacy, and perhaps even shared development of the sea's vast oil and gas reserves. Such cooperation could ease tensions, foster trust, and set a precedent for peaceful dispute resolution in other contested regions. Yet the more likely outcome is a tense and prolonged standoff, with naval vessels shadowing each other and the constant threat of miscalculation or accidental conflict looming over every encounter. The risk of escalation remains ever present as each side tests the other's resolve. The stakes could not be higher. Disruption in the South China Sea would send shockwaves through global economies, threatening vital shipping lanes and supply chains that connect Asia, Europe, and the Americas. Billions of dollars in trade pass through these waters every day, making stability here a matter of worldwide concern. The outcome of this contest will shape not only the future of international law and maritime rights, but also the alliances and balance of power across the Indo-Pacific. Regional nations are watching closely, weighing their own interests and alliances as the situation evolves. As the world holds its breath, the hope is that dialogue, diplomacy, and restraint will prevail over confrontation. The future of the South China Sea, and the peace and prosperity of the region, hangs in the balance.